Good morning and welcome. I am Cantor Bryce Megdell, Cantor of CRJ. If you wouldn't mind making sure all of your cell phones are turned off, that would be great. And as you see, Mark has arrived, so we will begin in just a moment. Adonai Natan v'Adonai lakach. Adonai Natan v'lakach. Adonai Natan v'Adonai lakach. Adonai is the judge of truth. Praised is the judge of truth. Praised is the judge of truth. Adonai has given, and Adonai has taken. Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. Praised be the name of Adonai. Praised be the name of Adonai. Baruch Dayan HaEmet. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. God of tears and mysterious silence, God of suffering and God of hope, you have made for everything a season. This is the season of sorrow, of our grief, and we pray for grace to deal with what seems impossible to deal with. We remember the promise made to those who mourn, yet too often it seems that comfort is beyond our grasp. We know that we cannot bear this burden alone. Should we pray for our grief to be transformed, or is the purpose of our grief to transform us? Will our sorrow lead somewhere unexpected? Might it lead us back to life if we follow it? Is it a reminder of the precious reality of life and love? The death of our loved one, Mark Ackerman, has created a vast, empty space within our lives, a great longing within our hearts. Can it ever be filled? Can it be healed by the sacred memory that makes our loved one forever a part of us? So many questions, O God, and so much silence. May we be patient toward all that is unanswered in our hearts, and may others be patient with us, with our sorrow, our anger, our fear, and our questions. We are those who mourn. We seek the comfort that we can offer each other and the blessings of divine love and grace. Amen. The Dash by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of his friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the second with tears. But he said that what mattered most of all was the dash between those years, for that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what the little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live in love when we're living out the dash. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and what is real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember that this special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, will you be pleased with what there's to say about how you spent your dash? Dry your tears. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he'll come back, or you can open your eyes and see all he's left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember Mark, and only that he's gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he'd want. Smile when you think of him, open your eyes, love, and go on. We are linked forever, our souls bounded together, even though you're not here anymore. I look up to the stars, you are there shining brightly, and I know you will always be with me. I will remember all of the times we shared before we had to say goodbye. I will remember all of the times we shared before we had to say goodbye. You are missed already. I need more strength. I will take what I've learned from you. I will hold you in my heart and gather what I've got and make you proud of me. remember all of the times we shared before we had to say goodbye. I will remember all of the times we shared before we had to say goodbye. Death cannot deprive us of happy memories, or enduring friendship, or the eternal qualities of a beloved personality. Ironically, death enhances memory, and it makes even more vivid all that was meaningful and lasting. Death cannot erase a life, and the love that ennobled it. True, we shall not see again, Mark, nor hear the familiar voice. That is, we shall not see with our eyes, nor hear as we heard before, but with our hearts we shall see. And in the Holy of Holies of our minds, we shall hear again comforting words that even death cannot silence. As Mark has done so often in life, so now, even in death, Mark's memory will return to us again and again to heal the hurt of separation, to relieve the pain that death has wrought. Miss me, but let me go. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to go home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know and bury your sorrow in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. I invite good friend Joel Baumgarten to share a song.
You do not know. Lehila, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lehila, Lehila. And I shall make your name great, Leha, and thou shalt praise your name, Lehila, to the place that I will show you. Listen, Hatayim, listen, Hatayim. Listen, Hatayim, Lehila, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing, Lehila. Love you, Mark.
Thank you, Joel. And Mark shall be a blessing, and Mark is a blessing. I now call Stanley Markovsky, cousin of Mark, to say a few words.
Sadly, I'm here to talk about my cousin. So, excuse me. Mark would tell me to man up and get the job done. So, Mark was a builder. With Jody, they built a great family and a beautiful home. With his parents and his brothers, they built a great, strong business. Mark loved to build. He loved to build buildings. He earned the respect of the city officials, the lenders, the partners, for all of his great building accomplishments. Mark built a lifetime of friends. The guys had an absolute blast. One absolute blast. I can't even tell you all the stories, but just imagine having the greatest time skiing, scuba diving, snorkeling, traveling around the world, and just having a blast. So, although 64 is a short time, Mark lived a full life. And the beautiful thing about that was, all of our conversations over the last year, he knew it. He appreciated it, and he really knew it. Mark was the first born American in our family, in my family. He always said that he was the American dream. That was his motto. Well, cousin, you lived the dream. Love you.
Thank you. I now call Dr. Russell Hyatt to also share a few words.
Good morning. My name is Russ Hyatt, and I'm one of the newer and definitely one of the older Ackermans. As some of you might know, it's not always easy joining a family, but in my case, it was incredibly easy and heartwarming, especially made so by both Mark and Jody. The price of admission was merely to show up and to participate. Early on, that meant attending Passover and Rosh Hashanah dinners at Mark's house. He was warm and welcoming, and I felt at ease even when stumbling through the religious ceremonies. The assimilation into his family was positive and instantaneous, no questions asked. All these occasions were notable for great food and even better conversation, ranging from Gator football to the latest and best shows on TV. A few months ago, Rob and I had dinner with Mark and Jody, and although he had gone through intense and difficult treatments, Mark was animated and eager to share his opinions about the latest and Masterpiece Theater offerings. It was a fun and spirited evening, and I shall always remember him for his courage in facing this horrible disease and for his total devotion to family and friends. May he rest in peace.
Thank you. I now invite Gary Baumgarten, close friend.
Hi. I think I'm acquainted with most everyone here, but if you don't know me, I'm Gary Baumgarten and one of Mark and Jody's longtime friends. Dana and I had the pleasure of meeting Mark and Jody way back in 1987 at a vow renewal ceremony for mutual friends. Sadly, our mutual friend's marriage eventually ended in divorce, but on a happier note, our connection with Mark and Jody started at that party and grew stronger and more meaningful in the 34 years that followed. If I were to describe Mark's personality, I'd say he was detail-oriented, organized, alternately focused and relaxed, and he had a dry sense of humor with a hint of sarcasm. To say that he was detail-oriented would actually be an understatement. You see, Mark and I shared office space for 7 years. Having many a conversation with him meant keeping him on task, reminding him to focus on the bigger picture. Often, it meant backtracking and repeating details we had already scrutinized. We often laughed about it, and what I realized was how Mark processed and categorized information, and that was important to him, to his family, and to his business. As I mentioned, Mark also had a remarkably dry and quick sense of humor that was sprinkled with a hint of sarcasm. I know that comes to no surprise to most of you, and I'm sure that many of you have experienced his snappy observations and remarks. I understood and appreciated that behind those fast quips and needling but never mean humor was a man who is intelligent, talented, capable, kind, compassionate, insightful, a thoughtful sounding board, and most importantly, a true friend. Some of our best memories of time spent together with Mark and Jody were when they came over on Saturdays to watch the Gator football games. We would enjoy Jody's delicious guacamole, Dana's famous Greek salad, some fabulous red wine, and Joel's incredible chocolate chunk cookies. We all had our designated seats with Jody smack dab in front of the big screen TV, screaming at the referees, pacing the floor, and blogging with all the other rabid Gator fans. Mark always sat in the same spot, behind the couch, enjoying a glass of really good red wine and watching the game. Football season, and certainly life as we knew it, won't be the same without Mark. But we'll honor his memory with a great glass of wine at his designated football watching spot. And as long as Jody is screaming at the players and the refs, pacing and blogging, I think we're all going to be okay. In life, we may have many acquaintances, but most of us can usually count true friends on one hand. Mark was a wonderful friend to me and my wife, Dana, and will be forever grateful for the special connection he and our son Joel developed. Every time Mark and I greeted each other, whether in person or on the phone, he'd say, "Hello, Mr. Baumgarten," and I'd reply, "Hello, Mr. Ackerman." I think that perfectly captures and illustrates the respect, affection, and appreciation we felt for each other. Yes, it may be the end of an era, but our 34-year friendship will be forever chiseled on my heart. Rest in peace, my friend, and remember, I've got your back.
Thank you. We invite Jose Medeiros to share a few words.
Good morning. My name is Jose Medeiros. Mark and I have been friends. Actually, that's not accurate. Mark and I have been brothers for over 48 years. When I met Mark, he was cleaning out the condos at his dad's condominium in Shady Dell. and I was working in my dad's sandwich shop. We were both living at home, and when we met, we hit it off. He was my brother of the soul. We were kindred spirits. We looked at the world the same way. We had the same ideas. We were so similar, it was scary. I'll never forget one time we were at a party together, and this idiot came up and started giving Mark a hard time for being Cuban. And then he turned to me and gave me a hard time about being Jewish. So we just sat there and listened to him. And when he finished, we looked at each other and said, "You want to go first? Do you want me to do this?" And we looked at the guy and he said, "I'm Cuban, he's Jewish, and you're so stupid you can't even be a good bigot. So if you'll please go decay in the corner, we'd like to go back to the party." And that's the way it was. Mark and I both loved cars. And since we were living at home, we loved to go for cruises. And it was almost like Route 66, the old TV show with the two guys that would get in the car and just cruise down the road and wind up wherever the road took them. And that's what we would do. We'd just start talking and wind up in Orlando or Tampa, or, it was just before we realized it. One time we went all the way to Houston before we realized we better turn around and head back home. But we just, in 48 years, we had so many adventures. Sometimes we would laugh because we would say it was like life imitating art. If you allow me, I'd like to share one of the adventures of which Mark and I were the proudest. One night, actually early one morning, about 2:30 in the morning, we were coming back from a party in Cocoa Beach, and we decided to go down Old River Road, which is one of our favorite roads to cruise down. We always admired the beauty and everything about it. And I'll never forget it. We were driving down Old River Road in my 58 MGA, 2:30 in the morning, windows open, the breeze coming in. We were just reveling in being young and being alive. When all of a sudden, we saw this huge pulsating light up ahead. So I stopped the car in the middle of the road. There were no other cars on the road at that time. And Mark and I looked at each other, and I said, "Do you see anything?" And Mark looked at me, he goes, "I do if you do." I said, "Okay, what do you think it is?" And I said, "Well, we're about to find out." And I put that MGA in first gear and tore down those roads, going around those curves as fast as we could go, thinking, hey, we're about to be abducted by alien beings. And all of a sudden, we came around this curve and ran into the source of the pulsating light. The trees on the riverside of the road had somehow caught fire, and the wind had blown the flames over to the residential side, and the houses were in danger of catching fire. And you can imagine at 2:30 or 2:45 in the morning, everybody was sound asleep. So we immediately pulled it into the driveway. We both jumped out of the car, started beating on the doors. Today we'd probably get shot. But we were beating on the door, trying to get in. Finally, this little old guy came to the door, probably about my age now. And we pointed to the fire, and Mark quickly ran into call 911 on the phone while I got him to get his hoses set up. And then we ran over to the neighbors, and in a matter of minutes, we had all the people living in that neighborhood out with water buckets and hoses. And I remember Mark handling one hose, and I was handling another, and we just looked at each other and just going, "Is this for real?" you know, and believe it or not, by the time the fire department got there, the fire was, we'd beaten the fire back to the riverside. And when the firemen got there, we slowly walked over to my car, got in it, and drove away. And we looked at each other and said, who's going to believe this? You know? Who's going to believe this? Nobody will believe it. And, you know, adventures like that, there were so many of them that they'll always stay in my heart. I always admired Mark for the courage and the way he tackled life. But I'll always be in awe of the courage he showed in facing death. He's my brother. My soul has a heart, a hole in it that won't be filled until he and I are cruising again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I now would like to invite Michael Ackerman, Mark's son.
I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, whether it's in person or via live stream. Seeing our family and friends here with us and feeling the presence of so many that are watching is a testament to the lasting impact that my father had on so many. I can't tell you how much it means to our family. I'm going to get through this. From as far back as I can remember, my dad made everything look easy. Whether he was skiing down the most challenging runs, diving in the reefs of the Caribbean, or holding court among a crowd of strangers, my dad never flinched. And yet, as confident as he could be, he was always kind and exuded humility. To have just one of these traits would have made him powerful. The fact that he had all three made him special. Never was my dad more in his element than when he was on a construction site. It was his passion. He could spot flaws in the design of a building or shoddy work from a contractor where I only saw concrete blocks and wood beams. Most of the time when I wanted to learn, and some of the time when I really didn't, my dad would teach me the technical intricacies of his craft. Don't mind if I do. But we are so much more than what we do, and my dad was no exception. My parents made endless sacrifices to ensure that my sister and I were left wanting for nothing growing up. They say that 90% of life is showing up, and my dad took that to heart. No matter how busy he was, whether it was a school function, a dance recital for my sister, or a karate tournament for me, my dad always made the time to be in our cheering section. I wish that I could tell you all something profound that would provide us with some comfort or semblance of understanding as to why we're all here today. Sometimes words simply don't do justice to our circumstances. However, I can say this. I love my dad. I say love and not loved, because for the rest of my life, there will never be a day when I don't think of him. And as in life, he will always be there with me whenever I need a friend to talk to. Excuse me. A teacher when there's a lesson to be learned, or a crutch to support me when I inevitably fall. If there's anything to be learned in the midst of all this pain and sadness, I believe it's this. Life is precious. There are no guarantees. We are not promised tomorrow. So I encourage you all to try to live as fully as my dad did. And if you're lucky enough and can do it half as well as he did, yours will be a life well lived. I love you, Dad. I miss you. And I'll see you again someday. But until then, I'll try to be brave and strong as you always were.
Jody Ackerman would like to say a few words as well.
Oh, man. Those are some acts to follow. Look at all the people here, Mark, that love you. He was a humble guy, and if we attended someone else's shiva or funeral, he'd say, wow, nobody's going to come to mine. And I'd say, you're silly. You're just being silly. I'm so grateful to all of you who are here today. I'm not a speech maker. And I think Michael and our good friends and family have covered much of what I wanted to say. But I wanted to begin by acknowledging the staff at Orlando Health and Vitas, especially Dr. Jennifer Sang, Dr. Nareen Ramakrishna, but especially our dear friend Jay Falk and our dear friend Marty Darrow. You guys have been over the top supportive of us. For our wonderful friends and neighbors, the thoughtful gestures, meals, offers to walk the dog, you name it. There's been an outpouring that is just unreal, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. To special friends like the Baumgartens, who have been thick and thin. Gary, if anyone needs insurance in this room, and a hand to hold, Gary's your man. And Joel, your beautiful voice. And Dana, always a text every morning at like 6:30 or 5:30 when she's ready to go train people. And I'm like this, just to check in. I love you guys. Cheryl and Carrie. Cheryl made a promise to Mark in the hospital that she would not let him suffer. And so for the 11 days he was home at hospice, She was nursing him. You know Cheryl, she was ordering the entire VITAS staff around. Pharmacists at Walgreens will never be the same. It was, you kept your promise, Cheryl. And she'd call Carrie, he'd be golfing, resting, and he'd run to check over Mark. Thank you so much. To Maureen, where are you, Maureen? Maureen's our rock. She keeps our lives running, and she takes care of Louie. Day and night, she moved in for 2 weeks with us when Mark had his brain surgery. I couldn't have done it without you, Maureen. I couldn't. To the many who have traveled here this morning, the Markovskis, all of you, you're not cousins. I mean, we're family beyond cousins. It doesn't say it. Jason and Marianne, Gary and Lainey, Pammy and Carl, all the kids, Josh and Brett, all of you guys, all your kids, Susan and Jamie. I love you all. Mark loved every one of you. Stan, Gary, Jose, and Bruce Grable, whose plane from LA got messed up, couldn't be here. I could spend hours just talking about their friendship and the shenanigans and the stories. He loved you. You're his brother. Every one of you. Ilan and Rob, I'm so sorry you're losing your baby brother. You know how much he loved you. Frida, no parent should ever bury a child, no matter what age. It's just wrong, and I'm so sorry and love you so much. Know that he always wanted you to be proud of him his whole life, and I think you were. I'm confident you were. But it was always a goal of his. And Jamie and Michael, you were his greatest joy from the time you were born. Everything, every honor, your education, the way you conduct yourself as adults and human beings on this earth. He loved and adored you. Me, he could take or leave every once in a while. But don't say anything about those two. I love you all. Thank you for being here. I love you, Mark. You're the love of my life from the time we were little kids. I have one little story to finish. And if you think you know Mark because you met him as an adult, you really don't know him. He was this grown-up, responsible guy that you know now. But when he was probably about 3 or 4, he did something, I don't know what it was. And Frida said, "Wait till your father comes home. You go, you're having time out," or whatever they said in the 50s and 60s. So he went into their downstairs bathroom, and I think he locked the door, and she said, "Good, you stay there." Hours went by. Now today, another mother might have jimmied the door open and tried to see, is my kid okay? But she knew Mark, and he was pouting in there. So finally, my father-in-law comes home from work. "You'll never guess what Mark did. You go see him right now. He's in the bathroom. He's locked himself in there." He goes, "What? I don't know what you're talking about. Mark's down the street playing with his friends." That was Mark. And I know my niece and nephews probably have a little toddler who is capable of those things. Or when Aunt Cheryl would say to Andrew or one of the kids, "You're just like your Uncle Mark." It wasn't to be kind. I love you all. Thank you so much.
What wonderful words and stories and love. I'm sorry I never met Mark, but I feel like I did now. Mark Ackerman was born on December 26, 1956, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the youngest of 3 sons to Hy and Frida Ackerman. He was a precocious child, always getting into trouble, but he could get away with it being the youngest boy in the family. He loved to play the drums, hockey, and to ice skate. And as he got into his teen years, he would often be compared to John Travolta in the movie Grease. He wore leather jackets, hung out with guys who fixed up cars and rode motorcycles, and was a bit of a rebel. He was also an avid skier and would go on guys' trips with his friends. And although school wasn't his thing, and he didn't try hard to get good grades, somehow he always got straight A's. Not surprisingly, this got on his girlfriend's and eventual wife's nerves during college especially. Jody and Mark met when they were 15 years old. She was a cheerleader, and he was a tough guy, like John Travolta. He would make fun of Jody as a cheerleader, but of course that was his way of flirting with her. I guess she didn't mind because after 6 or so years of dating, they got married in 1977. 18 months later, their daughter, Jamie, whose birthday was yesterday, was born. Jody gave birth to her in Melbourne, Florida, where they had relocated to in order to begin working for Mark's parents' construction company. At that point, Mark had become a general contractor, and Jody had gotten her real estate license. Not long after, Mark's brothers, Rob and Lon, made the journey from Minnesota to Melbourne as well to work for the family business. Jody and Mark moved to Orlando in 1983 when Michael, their second child, was 6 months old. There, they enrolled Jamie and Michael in the JCC preschool and joined Temple Israel with hopes that each of them would meet other Jewish children and begin to build their own Jewish identities. Jamie and Michael were fairly involved in the youth programs at CRJ as well. The family became members of CRJ about 10 years ago with the encouragement of their good friend, Gary Baumgarten, who was a member of CRJ and someone you heard speak not long ago. In late 2019, feeling dizzy and experiencing earaches, Mark went to his doctor's office to get checked out. They gave him antibiotics that would hopefully alleviate his discomfort. Then, after becoming ill for a week as a result of going on rides at Universal Studios over Thanksgiving weekend, he knew it was time to go to the doctor again. Something wasn't right. In December 2019, Mark found out that he had a massive brain tumor. His lung cancer, which had fully been treated by removing part of one of his lungs, had metastasized to his brain. Eventually, from his brain, it went into his spinal cord and took over his nerves. This was extremely painful for Mark. However, that pain wasn't felt until very recently. Mark was an amazingly strong person, both emotionally and physically. According to Michael, 3 days after his brain surgery on December 13, 2019, he was walking up and down steps, feeling good. He even went on a road trip with Michael 4 weeks later to New York City, and in between appointments they had at Sloan Kettering, nothing stopped them from enjoying themselves. A stranger wouldn't have known that Mark had just had brain surgery. And positive news came from his PET scans at Sloan Kettering. His brain tumor was nowhere to be found, and only a small pea-sized nodule was located in his lung, which he later had removed through a lobectomy. Mark was a fighter. Statistically speaking, he shouldn't have survived as long as he did. He beat his mortality rate 3 times over, and he was willing to do whatever it took to stay alive. Whatever treatment, whatever discomfort or impact on his body, he did it, and he didn't complain, not once. He fought and fought and fought until the very end. He wasn't ready to leave this world when he did, though his wife and children told him that it was okay. He wasn't ready to use a walker when he became weak from radiation and chemotherapy. With such a good support system in his life, his family and friends, I can understand why he didn't want to go, even with the amount of pain that he was experiencing. According to his oncologist, Mark's type of cancer, leptomeningeal, is the most painful form of cancer. Mark loved life and was a go-getter. Beating all odds that tend to come with not graduating college, he was successful at a young age and even improved the productivity of his parents' company. He was an intelligent, self-made man and an entrepreneur. Since December 2019, he did not let his illness define who he was. During his most difficult moments, he continued to work because he loved what he did and with whom he worked. He saw the value in living and the value in providing for his family, and he instilled these values into his children. Michael now works for the family company. Per Jamie, his daughter, Mark would drop everything to help someone at a moment's notice. He made sure everyone around him had everything they needed. He was the most fun person to vacation with. He had lots of great ideas for activities. He lit up the room. He treated her husband like a son. The nurses in the hospital loved him, even only from knowing him for a short time. He was brilliant and would always love to talk to her about building homes, construction, or anything else. And he was always available to give advice. Mark Ackerman will live on through Michael, Jamie, and Jody, and others. He will be remembered and continue to be loved by so many. His mother, his brothers and their families, his extended family, his friends, and his CRJ family. May his memory be a blessing, and may his family and friends find comfort during their time of grief. Baruch Dayan Haemet. O God, healer of the brokenhearted and binder of their wounds, grant consolation to those who mourn. Give them strength and courage in their time of grief, and restore to them a sense of life's goodness. Fill them with reverence and love, that they may serve you with a full heart, and let them know peace. Amen. I offer you a prayer of healing at this time, anyone who is grieving, but especially the immediate family. Mi shebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Join in if you know it. Mi shebeirach imotenu mikor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and and let us say, Amen. May you find comfort during this time. We've come to the time where we recite El Malay Rachamim. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Mark Ackerman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Please rise if you are able. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot keroshim u'tehorim, kezor harakia, mazirim, et nishmat Moshe David ben Chaim, she'alach le'olamo, began Eden, tehei menuchato. Ana bal harachamim, hastireu b'seter knafecha le'olamim, utror bitror hachayim, et nishmoto. Adonai hu nachalato, ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, ve'nomar Amen. This concludes the funeral service. Interment will now take place at Palm Cemetery in Winter Park. Shiva will be held at 7:30 p.m. at the Ackerman residence. In order to avoid too many people in the home at the same time, the family requests that only immediate family and out-of-towners attend tonight. Tomorrow night, local friends and extended family are welcome to join them for Shiva at 7:30 p.m. as well. I now invite the pallbearers to come forward. And please allow the family to follow first after the pallbearers. Thank you.